Welcome to episode 216 of the Necronama.com. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And I got up at noon, went to work at 1, took an hour for lunch, and then at 2 I was done. Jolly good fun.
And I'm Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of this podcast. And I am one of, oh man, I can't believe I'm admitting this. I am one of possibly 10 people of color who's never watched The Wiz. Because
Wow.
I don't want to ruin The Wizard of Oz.
Huh. That's actually fascinating. I knew The Wiz was going to come up. I just didn't expect that to be what you said. I don't know. Huh.
All right, James, let's not linger. Let's ease on down the road.
I really thought you were going to say you were one of the only remaining munchkins, but you know.
Wow.
So joining us today, I'm sorry. Katherine Silva is here today. Kat, thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited to do this.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here too. I really thought that Don was going to say he was part of the Lollipop Guild.
That would be amazing.
Waiting for it.
Oh, trust me, there are going to be a lot of jokes coming up.
Somebody out there, Thomas Berngard, if you're listening, somebody out there make me a shirt with the Lollipop Guild, but put Sam from Trick or Treat in the middle with his lollipop. And I swear I will wear that at every fucking con I'm at for a year. That would make my day. Anyway, so Kat, you want to tell our listeners a bit about yourself and your works and all that good stuff?
Yes. So my name is Katherine Silva. I go by Kat for short. I am a horror author from Maine. I tend to write grief horror, slow burn horror, existential horror. My latest books that came out this year are The Wild Fall and Lost Oblivion, which are sequels to 2 books within my Wild Oblivion series, which is all about a forest purgatory that's taking over the world. So kind of related to what we're talking about today, that, you know, weird girl lost in a weird world thing. And yes, that's that.
Cool. Are there any trees that throw apples at people and make mean faces?
Yeah, no, I didn't put any of those in the book.
No, really, your concept sounds fascinating. I didn't know that's what it's about. I haven't checked it out yet, but I really like that concept. So that sounds awesome. So The Wizard of Oz, you picked this, and Don, you wrote me in what?
No, I'm just going to cut you off, dude. You don't even have to give the background. I'm just going to go ahead and take over this part. I apologize for doing it, for being so forceful. I have to do this on air. Katherine, Kat, thank you. Thank you so much for requesting this movie. I've texted James over the past 5 years. It was like, can we please do Wizard of Oz? No one's requested. I don't give a shit. We need to have like an episode where nobody can get scheduled. I don't give a shit. I want to talk about this movie. And he's had to deal with me on panels, bringing that up. He's had to deal with me on social media, bringing it up. It is one of my favorite movies for many reasons. It is also one of the films that I've used to teach aspects of history, politics, social issues. I want to thank you for requesting this, but the sad part is that now I can't harass James about this movie anymore.
He's gonna be like, can this be the first time we do it twice? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, no. I was just going to say you're welcome. I have been like trying to talk about this on a podcast for a while, and yeah, it's like my favorite movie ever. So I am right there with you.
Now, literally, when I got the email that said The Wizard of Oz, I was like, well, that's done. Don's going to be so happy. So, but why did you pick it? I know you just said it's like your favorite movie ever, but like, just in general, what did you want to talk about so much? What does this movie do for you, and why is this the one?
Oh, there is something to be said about movies that inspire us when we're kids. And for whatever reason, The Wizard of Oz has definitely been one of my inspirations to create worlds, to become an author, to write about fantasy and dark fantasy at that. Because there's a lot of things inherently that are spooky about The Wizard of Oz. And I have a really strange way of sniffing those out in a lot of different children's movies, and a lot of them have inspired what I've written over the last 13 years. So it's something that I just kind of wanted to talk about and sort of delve into the reasons maybe why it's such an inspirational movie for so many, and what exactly are those dark things that are kind of lingering under the surface that we don't really talk about.
I love it. Yeah, similar for me. This was one of those movies that just captivated me when I was a kid, and I've always come back to it. It used to be on TV, once or twice a year, and I didn't even have like a VCR when I was growing up. My parents were like, "We don't need that shit," So like, I had to watch when it was on. So for like a week when I knew it was coming, it was all I wanted. I just wanted to see this fucking movie again, and I was so in love with it. And like you said, it influenced me a lot. It inspired me. It did scare me a little bit as a kid, just that like uneasy feeling. Even rewatching now, like the part where the lion runs down the hall and jumps out the window, for some reason as a kid, that's what did it for me. It wasn't the big powerful Oz. It wasn't the witch. I was like, oh my God, that guy jumped out of a fucking building, like, and even now watching it, I was like, oh crap, here it comes. But like, it's just that weird, uneasy feeling, and then like looking at it now, it's done in such a great way where it still speaks to adults and it still hits all these notes for us. But yeah, that feeling of being inspired never goes away. Was it like that for you too, Don? Is this one of the ones that influenced you?
I don't know about, well, you know what? I would say yes. I can't pick a specific part of the film that really stood out to me of like, this is that thing that makes me want to tell stories or is going to light up my imagination or anything like that. I had kind of the same experience. Like it came on, I guess, in spring around Easter, typically like on TBS or whatever the local channel was. And I just remember I watched it like clockwork every year. If it happened to be on TV, I watched it because it's a movie that you can't not watch, if that makes sense. Like I don't know if anybody who hasn't seen The Wizard of Oz as an adult, as far as like a Gen Xer, that never had that experience of like you turned on the TV and you saw it, or you had somebody who didn't finish the movie because of the flying monkeys or something was going on. But I really like that this movie that is coming up, I guess in 2039, it'll be 100 years. This movie itself isn't stuck, I guess, in a vacuum, because everything that is being presented on screen, as far as like all the metaphorical things, are still valid today. Whether you're talking about exploitation, the way in which labor is ignored for a while, the ineffectiveness of politicians, and the criticism of wealth. As far as wealthy people don't actually work, they don't need to work. They can just, as James started off, you can get up at 12 and then go to work around 1.
It's always been my favorite line. I love that song.
Yeah.
Especially now. That just makes me think of the Kardashians. I'm like, you guys don't do anything.
Yeah, but so I guess I want to know.
Did I go too hard on the Kardashians? Because you guys got quiet.
Oh yeah, we're scared of them. No, I wanted to know, who is your favorite character in this?
Oh, it's the Scarecrow. It always has been. Always will be.
I think I'm a Scarecrow person as well. Yeah.
I'm stuck because I have the balance. I have that balance between the Lion and the Tin Man.
Interesting.
Mainly because of what they represent and the potential that they have. I'm still one of those jaded Wizard of Oz fans because I still get upset every time I watch it when, Dorothy says, "Oh, it's Scarecrow, I miss you the most." I'm like, I hate you. The other two don't.
Do you know why she says that? I just learned this and I was so disturbed. Apparently, in the original version, before it was cut, I don't know if it was filmed or just in the script, but there was supposed to be the farmhand who the Scarecrow is based on and Dorothy were supposed to be sweet on each other. That's how it said it in the article I read. And this really bothered me because I looked up their ages and he was like 35 and she was 16. And I was just like, ew. And and I read this right before watching it. And so when it got to that part where she's like, "I'll miss you the most," I was like, I don't want to hear that. But I'm glad it got cut. You see, even almost 100
All right,
years
do you
ago,
want to get more incestuous with this? More incestuous and creepy with this?
The Lion and the Tin Man were doing what?
All right, so Liza Minnelli married the Tin Man's son. So Jack Haley, who played the Tin Man, Liza Minnelli, daughter of Judy Garland, married the guy the son of the actor who played the Tin Man.
Huh.
Interesting.
I didn't know that.
I wonder if there's a psychological study where like your favorite person says something about you, Anyway, yeah. So Kat, let's jump in. Just lead the way wherever you want to go. You can go chronologically, theme by theme, random chaos mode. We are here. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I don't know. I think chronologically is kind of fun. Yeah, just sort of starting off at the beginning with the black and white farmhouse and the whole, what's her name? Elmira Gulch trying to hit the dog. that whole dark part there was pretty awful. So there's this whole part where we see Dorothy come running in with the dog and tries to get to her house, and I think what really spoke to me about that scene watching it recently was just that it was pretty abruptly scary that there's just this, lady who is, I guess, above the law, to say it nicely, who is, gunning for having the dog put down.
Yeah, she owns like half the county and thinks that she's in charge and she can just kill dogs if she wants. See, Don, even back then they were trying to kill the dog for the movie.
Well, you know what? I'm going to give you a little factoid. I guess we could do this as we approach different things. Toto, or I should say the dog that played Toto, I forgot the name of it, but it made around like $125 to $150 a week making the movie.
Yes.
And then the singers, the Munchkin singers, I'm going to use the other term that was used in the credits, but the Munchkin singers, they got paid $50 a week. You're paying just the dog $125 a week to be in the movie.
Yeah, I think that's what I was reading today. Was the dog made more, I think, than any other person. I think the dog was paid the most out of everybody on that film.
Yeah, it's just weird. Well, I guess they have their reasons. I mean, the dog is very memorable, But again, $125 for it. So, but no, I mean that's one of those things that does come up in this movie. Is this, depending on how you look at it, but the way that I taught it, it was just that looking at the way in which capital owners themselves, speaking of Elmira Gulch, this whole idea that her money is going to dictate power. She owns half the county, which then means that she owns everybody in that county. So she can just call up the sheriff. Oh, this dog bit me. You need to put it down. As opposed to the sheriff, or I should say just the gall of her to where she shows up at the house saying, I have an order from the sheriff. I'm going to take your dog. And understanding that she has enough power to do that, as opposed to, I'm going to call the sheriff is going to come get the dog. It's, I need to do it myself, just to show you how powerful I am, to where it's not just my money, is also the access that I have and the ability for me to do whatever I want. And just think about how, I don't want to call it total meaningless, but how meaningless a problem with a dog is.
Yeah, I mean, it's making such a big deal out of it, because, well, that's the character. That's the, making giant things out of small problems.
Mm-hmm. She seems like the kind of person that would buy Twitter for $44 billion just for no fucking reason.
No. Elmira Gulch would actually be able to make a profit off of it. Elmira Gulch is, she is who she is. It's more an issue of, she has the access to do this. I mean, I've looked at backstories of her and then fan theories about her. And my theory about Elmira Gulch is that she was a suffragette. She was very active in doing all this other stuff. And how do I put this? She understood the power that she could have, but she wanted to prove that she could do it. So by making this money, by buying up more land, doing these things, it was the idea of, she was pushing this idea of, I shouldn't say pushing it, she was representing this idea of the new woman, to where I can do these great things. But the way it's presented, and especially the way that women are represented, other than Mae West, the way that women are represented is like, if you go out and do those things, you're a villain, you're a bad person. If you go out and, you don't want to get married, you don't want to have kids, you just want to make money and I don't know, just exercise some type of political will. So I see her as being made into the villain for this movie, because it's going to represent what some men in power were feeling about women who decided to step out on their own. And you can also see her as representing the way in which bank foreclosures hit all these farmers, because it's very clear that Auntie M does not like her, because she was buying up people's land. And if you're a farmer, especially during this period in the 30s, you've already been hit several times with debt from taking out loans for equipment, from trying to buy more land, but then the crop yields weren't coming in. You have the Dust Bowl that takes place, and you got people that are losing their homes, and because it's not just their farm, they're losing their homes and they have nowhere to go. So with Elmira Gulch buying up all that other land, Auntie M and Uncle Henry, I guess more Auntie M than Uncle Henry, he just seems kind of like, whatever. but Auntie M kind of sees her as, not a witch, a vampire. Like, you're coming in and you're taking this stuff from us, when she's not the person who's doing it. It's the economic conditions. And she has I don't know, I guess expand, not her empire, but expand her holdings, because she has the money to do it.
Yeah.
And then
I was just going to say, at what point does that lust for power become, too much? Like, when does the lust to be in charge just take over? And I sort of feel like she loses, they're showing a little bit of her humanity kind of getting lost, because she doesn't seem to care about what she's doing to some of these other people. So there's that too. She's definitely, I can see where she would definitely be maneuvered to look like a bad person, and she is just sort of trying to take care of herself. But then there is also that just like, yeah, she's running over everybody else to get to what she wants, and every little thing that comes up in her way is just something for her to mow down, including, a dog in her garden.
I cannot picture this woman gardening.
Yeah.
like I feel like she has a gardener. I don't feel like it's
yes.
I feel like my garden means the garden I own, not the garden I tend. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Look, I'm tired of all this Elmira Gulch slander. Okay.
She's trying to kill a little girl's dog, so she deserves it. Her answer isn't even, hey, I could put up a fence. It's, I gotta kill your dog.
Remember, because even
he's evil.
Hunk or Hickory, I can't remember which one makes the comment, but he makes it was Hickory. He has this comment where he says, you need to use your brain instead of walking past Mrs. Gulch's property, just go the other way. Because he comes with a simple solution. It's like, you're not going to have to worry about her or worry about Toto getting into her garden or any of these issues if you just simply went another way. And I see that, especially with these farm hands that may be, I guess they're not transient because it's clear they've been there for a while. But the idea of these guys know how to, or at least in his case, know exactly how to avoid a situation from their life experience. So you have this, I'm older, a little bit wiser, you're younger, you're not seeing what the problem is, you're not seeing a solution, you just see that Elmira Gulch is here to take your dog, as opposed to what are the steps that you can take to ensure that this doesn't happen again. But again, we're not trying to fully rationalize a way in which she can avoid this from happening, because we have to determine that this lady's bad, and then we transition to this other world, you still see her as bad. Which is why James on Instagram responded to one of my comments where I stated that she is not the villain.
That was the witch. That's different.
Yes. Well, it's the same person,
No, it's not.
This idea that she's not the villain. I don't say she's the hero, but she's definitely not the villain, which I'll get into later on, because I know who the real villain is. So basically,
what you're saying is not all rich people. Got it. Cool.
Wow. Wow.
All I'll say as her lawyer, if she goes a different route, I feel like this woman still owns that property because she owns half the county. So I think it's going to be hard to find a path to take that doesn't interfere with this lady who just wants to cause problems because she's bored and rich.
You have that, but it's also the way in which if you're in a situation where you're not you have a power imbalance, you have to find a way that's feasible for you. So for somebody like Hickory or Hunk to say that, it's like, what the hell are you going to do? Like you got to avoid somebody like this, because they are going to, as you said, because they're so bored, they are going to find a problem when none exists.
I looked it up while. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. That's okay. You go.
I was just going to say, so I looked up, I was fascinated by the dog making so much money, right? So I looked it up, and according to the calculator I used, maybe it's accurate, maybe it's not, the $125 a week today would translate to almost $2,700. Okay. That's what the dog was getting, which was more than almost everyone else. Judy Garland was paid $500 a week. So about 4 times what the dog had. We'll call it 10 grand just to round it, right? Meanwhile, Scarecrow, $3,000 per week, which translates to $67,000 a week today. And this imbalance right here is just fascinating to me. I know this isn't what we came to talk about, but this is social commentary. Like, the fact that first they're paying a dog way more than they're paying 90% of their cast members, I sort of get it. The dog had to be trained. It had to, whatever. Other people just had to dress up and sing a song. But like 3,000 versus 500 for your main character because she's a girl, right? And she's underage. She's 16. And they're abusing the shit out of her. Anybody who's heard her story knows like how obsessed they were with her weight and how she had to smoke cigarettes all day instead of eating and all this other stuff, right? And I find this imbalance so interesting because it's still here today. We're still getting so-and-so actress is making 1/10 of male lead, like, I don't know. It's crazy to me how 85 fucking years later, we're still here. And I didn't really have anywhere else I was going with this. I just really wanted to bitch about that.
No. Well, it was also with respect to Judy Garland's weight or her image. She was 16 years old when she had this movie or when she played this role. They immediately were like, you need to lose 20 pounds. Then with the dieting, the pills, everything that they were, giving to her to maintain that weight. I mean, basically amphetamines. And then on top of that, they had her wear a corset because they wanted her to look like a child, which I get that you've got this character that is a child because she legally is a child. She is one. But you're taking all these extra steps that they, for some reason, thought was necessary to demonstrate that she was a child, which again is weird because the original mock-ups or ideas, there was a lot of makeup to make her look more kind of like a baby doll with the rosy cheeks and all this other stuff, which really again gets into what this movie is talking about, is like, how is a kid going to deal with real world problems or real world situation? Because at 16 years old, I can tell you, even with the vastly greater amount of knowledge a 16-year-old or me as a 16-year-old 1939 would have had, I'm trying to do the math, the 1994 version of me would have been able to understand things in such a different way. So you're seeing how this person within this time period with this type of background has to deal with just such strange, weird stuff and survive it.
Mm-hmm. And
because the movie, there was like a lot of darker stuff in the movie. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off. That's fine. But I mean, they put stuff on the cutting room floor that I wish there was some way to access it. But it was a lot darker. It was a lot scarier. There was a lot more horror. And even I think, what was her name? Edith Hamilton, or Margaret Hamilton. The individual who played the Wicked Witch of the West. Like, kids were afraid of her because of the way that she was represented on the screen. And this is from the good version that they got to see, the sanitized version.
What were you going to say, Kat?
I was just going to add to, what I was going to say earlier, which was, all of the farmhands trying to give her ideas for how to avoid Elmira Gulch, and she's 16. So her reaction, and also for the plot purpose of the movie, was to just push it off and not take their advice. But that adds to Don's point about, say, young kid trying to survive in this day and age, and this portrayal, not only the portrayal of the character, but Judy Garland herself had to go through numerous directors on the project. Mm-hmm. Each director had their own vision for what the movie would be. And the first one, I can't remember who the first director was, but the first director was the one who kind of had the idea of going at it with a more romantic, sort of strange, darker feeling. And then Victor Fleming, who came in next, was the one who kind of brought it back down to earth. But then he also had some pretty radical ways of trying to bring it down as well.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know there were multiple directors. This is fascinating to me.
I think there were at least
that even affected casting, because I think the production, like Louis Meyer, who was with MGM, obviously, Meyer Gold. Oh my gosh, now I forgot the acronym. Anyway, the producer, he was like, I want Judy Garland, but there were like arguments with the directors because one wanted oh my god, Shirley Temple. And then there were a couple of other actresses that were in mind. And I think that was one of the reasons why one of the early directors was sent home, was because the producer wanted Judy Garland. There was no discussion. He was like, I want her in the movie. And she almost didn't get it. If it hadn't been for Louis Meyer, we're looking at a different movie and a different career for that matter, because I think I was watching Cursed Films, maybe it was Cursed Films, but one of the documentaries about the Wizard of Oz, and they were talking about how this movie, or at least Judy Garland's participation in this movie, can be directly linked with her addiction issues. And because it started with this movie, and the fact that she had to, still have to chase, I guess, the sensation of what they were giving her on the set, but then also she's always chasing the success from this movie. I'm sorry, not the success, because it wasn't even oh my gosh, I forgot the term. It broke even at the box office. It wasn't a financial success, but the fact that this is the movie she's known for, and it became a thing of trying to have something that was bigger than this, because it wasn't until I think the 1950s, when it was on TV, that it really exploded. Judy Garland had already had her time. She still continued on with her career. But again, it becomes that thing of like, you're still chasing that thing that's going to make you or break you in that case.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, no, I had one. Actually, no, I'm going to do it. What's really good about this movie, when we put in the historical context, you're looking at like the 1930s, because the movie comes out in 1939. There have been a lot of theories about Frank L. Baum's book, and of course, more theories about the movie with respect to symbolism and the metaphors and political meaning, social commentary, things like that. And what's great about this movie is this is the pre-war period for the United States. There's an old saying that, World War II begins based off of where you are. So for the United States, World War II has not started. For other parts of the world, it already has, and some it has been going on for a while. If you think about South Asia or East Asia, but during the Depression, people would go to the movie theaters to escape like the conditions of the world. And this is something that has continued on, because we always seek out some type of entertainment. We seek out some escape. After 9/11, like the number one movie after 9/11 was Legally Blonde, because people wanted to be able to laugh. Mm-hmm. For the 1930s, it was all about, I need to just see something that is not what I see outside. So MGM, with this movie, they're using Technicolor, which is a new technology at this time. They're presenting a story that some people are familiar with, and it's a story about hope. Mm-hmm. It's about, you got this destitute situation, and surviving when you shouldn't. It's the same thing as when you look at James Braddock, the boxer, in the 1930s, that became an inspiration for people during the Depression. Joe Louis, the same thing, where it was an issue of, we've got bad stuff going on. I want to see something that's going to make me feel better. And that's one of the magical things about this movie, is it still has that same connection of, the journey that you're going on is going to get you to the place that you need to be.
Yeah. It's funny. I was just thinking of sort of a darker take on it. But no, it's a very hopeful movie. But it's also, the whole point of the film kind of wraps around this, like, idea that she's not satisfied with how her world is, and then is shown that home is, where the heart is, and so be satisfied with what you have. and so it's almost kind of like chasing the faraway lands is bad. Be happy with what you have a little bit. And that does make sense because it was such a harsh time in the US. So it's a little sad at the same time as being hopeful.
Yeah, I really paid attention to that this time around. And like I said, this is probably the movie I've seen the most in my life. And I've thought about it a couple times before, but this time it really hit me. The whole, like, she's on her own. She's got a mission. She's basically her own boss. She's got people helping her out, but she's still leading the way. She's the one who kills the witches. She's the one, she does all this. And then she's like, yeah, it's never going to be Kansas though. And I was sitting there having just come back from visiting my home state of Nebraska, which I don't have a great relationship with, but I was like, call me crazy. I think I'd rather stay and take the Wizard's place, but that's me. And it really hit me how much it matters that she was a woman in the 1930s as well. There weren't, I'm not saying anything's perfect by any means today, but like you couldn't just, okay, I guess Gulch is destroying my argument here, but the odds of making it as a woman without these other people weren't good for her, especially at that time. And it really hit me.
But James, look at the way she's represented though. I mean, as far as both of them, where Dorothy's good because she's doing these things, right? Elmira is bad because she's doing these things that, if she were a male, it would have been, you wouldn't have really thought that much about it. So, you're right. Elmira's experience doesn't undercut what you're saying. It just helps illustrate that, some things are nuanced. You have people who are doing it, but they're not respected for doing that. They're seen as the exception, or they're seen as the anomaly.
I would have stayed in Oz.
Wait. So you're saying you would have stayed in Oz? Because I'm going to jump forward on this one. You're saying that
I've destroyed.
You would have jumped forward and taken over for the fraud that was the Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I don't have to be a fraud like him. I don't have to act the way he acted. I can just be the person who killed these two witches and brought freedom, and now we can work at making our society better. But I mean, it seems like it's pretty good already. They're rolling around on multicolored horses and singing songs all day. So,
well, Emerald City,
but that's the city of Oz.
Yeah.
Well, that's where, City. But that's where I would be staying.
So you'd ignore the people.
Have you seen these other people? There are trees that throw things at people, and the Munchkins seemed happy enough.
If you pick their apples.
How would you feel if I started ripping things off of you, huh?
Ooh, baby.
Well, no, I have a big problem with the wizard. I didn't have this problem when I was a kid because, obviously life experience, literacy changes what you're going to be, changes the perspective you have on what you're exposed to. So I always saw the wizard as a kid. I was like, oh, great, this is the guy. And then you get to the point where you realize, oh, he's not this big, bad, scary thing. He's regular human. And then you get to this point where he starts giving people things like, oh, he's giving him a heart. He's giving him a brain. He's, metaphorically, he's giving him with these things, or symbolically, he's giving these things. And then you get to adulthood and you realize he's the same con man. And I mean, literally and figuratively, he's the same con man that Dorothy runs into when she first runs away. And this whether we're talking about Frank L. Baum's novel, or we're talking about the way it's represented here through the director, through the writers, through the producers, that all this is an illusion. Just even like power, it's an illusion. Political power is an illusion. And the people that are in charge, if people figure out that it's an illusion, they lose that power. Because as soon as he's found out, he like folds. He's like, oh, yeah, hey, I'm not a bad person. I'm just a bad wizard.
Yeah. Gives them to sort of
like,
make sure they don't.
Man.
Because my question is, did people know the wizard was a person? What? No, I'm sorry. Never mind. Yeah, because he lands and they realize he put up this show for, I guess, people who never saw him. Which again is weird because the initial guy at the door says, nobody sees the wizard. I haven't even seen the wizard. But he talks about how when he first arrived, they made him, they put him in charge, which I just see it as they saw someone flying down from the sky and realized they were magical and said, hey, we need some help with our witch problem.
Maybe the whole wizard facade is for the witch. Maybe she didn't see him. And so it's like mutual assured destruction, right? The witch comes, they're like, well, we have a wizard. And then the wizard does this show, and then she's scared and leaves them alone. Maybe that was the purpose of this. That's the only thing that would make sense to me, because if they've already seen him, then, they know. So.
Yeah. And so who was it? Disney, maybe, who tried to do the prequel, Oz the Great and Powerful back in.
We don't talk about that.
13. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't good. But that attempt at an exploration there was, okay, but I don't know. I wasn't completely satisfied with that.
I don't know. It's all weird.
For me, that is not canon. Wicked is canon, but not the Great and Oz. I'm sorry, Great and Powerful Oz.
Well, your rules usually once Franco's involved, we never talk about it again.
Yeah, that's. I will be honest. That is a rule that I've adopted a few years ago. I'm like, nope. No,
I agree with Wicked being canon. That is a satisfying origin story.
Oh, 100%. All right, so God, we haven't gotten to the tornado yet.
Yeah, we haven't gotten anywhere yet. Yeah.
No, I looked at my notes and it was like, oh no, a tornado. Now we're going over the rainbow. But I mean, you could look at the con artist that Dorothy runs into as being representative of snake oil salesmen in the late 19th, early 20th century. It's also that criticism of politicians as far as like, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, or I'm sorry, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to figure out some way to manipulate you, and basically get you to believe me. The cart is one thing, and because you're a quote unquote yokel, you're this farm kid who doesn't know that much, isn't well educated about the world. I can easily trick you. So, I mean, there are a lot of different levels to this as far as the way in which people are taken advantage of and the way others take advantage of them. That being a carnival barker or a snake oil salesman is one thing, but you can also see him as, to make a modern day comparison, since we've already mentioned him a couple of times. I mean, people like Elon Musk or Donald Trump or any individual that has made their career based off of being con artists.
I mean, the wizard's definitely a con artist. I don't know about you guys, but it's always been headcanon to me. I don't know if it's proved anywhere. If it is, then, I'm stupid, whatever. But like the doorman is the wizard. Mm-hmm. The guy who has the horse, he's the wizard. And the guy who's like the guard of the wizard's area, that's the wizard. Like, I feel like this is just a dude changing costumes and like trying to keep his own mystique. You know, so that really plays into the con man aspect as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hadn't actually thought of it that way, but yeah, no, that's the quick change artist.
Yeah, and then running behind the curtain. You know, yeah, I feel like he's like a paranoid dude trying to keep this mystique so he can keep his power. And also earlier I said the Scarecrow was my favorite, but the Doorman is my favorite character. The whole bust my buttons thing is just fantastic. So yeah.
He is fun.
Oh, Jimothy. Okay, this is again that criticism of what they're doing in this movie. Not criticism, but the critique of what they're doing. The genius aspect of, oh, they pull the chain to ring the doorbell. The guy pops his head out and says, "Can't you read?" And it says, "Knock, doorbell's broken." Right?
Oh, it doesn't even say that. The sign isn't even there. He has to put the sign out there.
He puts it out. That's what I mean. Like when there's the sign, it's like, you know, doorbell broken, you know, knock. And they do it. I'm like, that is just such a good comedic gag. But it's also a dig at the way that society is. Like, obviously, you know, I'm here. I don't need to take a number. I'm the only person here. Why do I need to do this? So, you know, it just gets into the absurdity of things that are unnecessary to an extent.
See, this is why I love him. He's hilarious. No. So we're still in black and white. The tornado hasn't arrived yet.
Yeah.
And we're really in more of a sepia, but anyway. Yeah, so Kat, this whole, like, the whole time before she goes to Oz, like the setup and everything, what do you think that we're supposed to take from all of this, aside from just setting up characters? Like, are we supposed to care about Kansas? Because I don't in any way.
Yeah, I mean, you're supposed to. I think you're supposed to care about Dorothy and the fact
I do care
that
about
she's
Dorothy.
kind of a spoiled brat. I mean, she is, and that she just longs for change. She wants people to listen to her. She wants to go to a place that's exciting and new and different, and the whole Over the Rainbow song, which was, I'm pretty sure that was like one of those last additions to the film that they did. Is really like the biggest showpiece of the sepia time before we get to the tornado, to illustrate that desire. I'm not sure if there's anything more to it than that. And then, of course, you know, the themes of depression and sort of establishing where we are and who we have. But yeah, sorry.
No. I think you actually just hit something for me too. When you said the depression part, I really realized that this whole thing about Kansas, you know, it really plays into how money wasn't everything, because money was non-existent, right? Family was everything. And the little bit that you had is who you are, because you made it and you work it and you do these things. And so in that way, it actually really makes sense to me that she would want to go back, because without family, who is she? And I don't know, I have never really thought about it in a depression era sort of thinking, and how even more important those things would be, because that's what you have.
And especially with her age, you know, you're talking about a 16-year-old kid, and well, I mean, 16-year-old actress, but I mean, she's honestly supposed to be, I guess, 13, 14. she's got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, as far as like your body's changing, your outlook on life, you got all these things going on, and you're living with your aunt and uncle, and there are no other kid. I mean, you don't get this opportunity to see her interact with anyone else her own age.
And there's a creepy farmhand hunk coming for.
Well, I was going to say you get those uncomfortable. You get those uncomfortable ways Hunk. In which. Have you seen Ray Bolger? I mean, that's a good-looking man.
He is.
Not only that, okay. Here's some cool like factoid stuff, right? So Ray Bolger, who becomes the Scarecrow, wasn't initially supposed to be the Scarecrow. It was supposed to be Buddy Ebsen, who was in Beverly Hillbillies. Oh my God, I forgot the cop show that he was in. Anyway, my dad would kill me if he's listening to this. He's like, I know the Barnaby Jones. There we go. See, all I had to do was invoke my dad, and it came up. So he was originally supposed to be the Scarecrow. Ray Bolger replaced him. Buddy Ebsen then took the role of the Tin Man, but ended up getting a severe allergic reaction to the silver paint that they were using, the aluminum paint that they were using. Stayed in the hospital for a few weeks and actually ended up not doing the movie because he couldn't wear the costume. He couldn't wear the paint.
It was powder. It was aluminum powder they were using at first, and then they changed it to paste after that.
Youch.
Yeah, it's like all three of the guys who did the prosthetics. I mean, who used prosthetics and the makeup all had issues. Like Ray Bolger, because of the paint that they used to make his face look like the Scarecrow, he looked like that for weeks. Margaret Hamilton, who was the Wicked Witch,
he was making $67,000 a week. So look that way.
He wasn't getting paid for those weeks. So Margaret Hamilton, she was green for a while after the movie was done. And in fact, when they were done painting her or giving her makeup, she could only eat like liquid food. So everything that she had to be liquid because she was not allowed to eat anything that was going to ruin the makeup. So we're talking like 10-hour days, probably longer, where she was just drinking fluids. But
they probably just told her that to keep her skinnier.
They might have.
Pretty tiny.
I know, exactly.
Oh, yeah. So what was it? The guy who played the Cowardly Lion, I think he ended up same thing with Ray Bolger. They ended up having like some allergic reactions to like the stuff that was on their skin, but nothing severe enough to where like Buddy Ebsen. But it was just remarkable that this movie, kind of like Jaws, how this movie actually got finished because there was so much that in some cases went wrong or could have gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, the movie was made. I want to find the original screenplay where they have all the darker stuff in it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, if you're listening and you know somebody who has it, please contact us because if I ever get the money, I'm going to make I'm going to redo this movie with the darker version.
Well, they're supposed
That's
to
what I'm going to do.
They're supposed to be redoing it maybe next year or the year after.
Really?
Is it Kenya or Kanye Barris is directing it?
Oh, Kenya, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So it'll be Jenna Ortega and Finn Woodhart and no, I just assume any movie being made is them. So so this tornado comes down, takes the house, throws it in the air as tornadoes do. No cows spinning around. I was very sad about that. And then it drops her in a new place. And while my 8-year-old daughter's watching this for the first time, she looks at me and she goes, "When did she stop dreaming?" And I was like, I'm not answering that question. She's like, it's all a dream. And I was like, God damn it. Anyway, so just you mentioned Technicolor earlier, Don. I do not understand these things well enough. Like, were there like what were color movies like before Technicolor? Like, what is the big change?
Not that much. I mean, the color was a little bit more muted, but Technicolor was like supposed to make it more vibrant, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because, but because it was MGM, because it was one of the, which it still is around, it was one of the major studios at that time. A lot of the money went to Technicolor because it was so expensive. So because they went with Technicolor and they wanted to showcase this technology so that sold the movie more than anything else, because in big letters, if you find some of the old movie posters, it'll say filmed in Technicolor, right? Because it was the same as when restaurants would advertise that they had air conditioning, or hotels would, or motels or wherever on the outside, like, we have cable. It was that same thing of like, oh, well, here's something cool for me to check out. And that's what it was with Technicolor. So they changed a few things in this movie to really illustrate how cool this was going to be. One is they changed the slippers, because in the book and the original play, there's silver, because it was supposed to be an economic conversation about silver and gold as far as the yellow brick road leading to DC, as far as this economic control or the economic policies.
How stupid
really
would
crazy,
they have felt if they left it in silver?
Very dumb, very. So they did that, and I was looking at some stuff recently. I didn't know this until probably this past week, that the dress is not the color that it appears on screen.
Huh.
The dress is actually blue and pink. And this is not to rehash the whole thing about is the dress blue and gold or white and gold or whatever that was a few years ago with the meme. But the dress that she had was pink and blue. So you had the gingham, blue design, but the other color was white. I'm sorry, the other color was pink to make it look white on the screen. So the way Technicolor would work, and feel free to correct me in the comment section that I will never read. The way Technicolor
I will, and I'll learn more.
You had whatever you were filmed, but then there were like strips that were added to the film to like make the color pop more or stand out. Thankfully, you don't have to do any stuff like that. You can just use a computer to get your layering effect going. But no, the Technicolor itself was such a new technology. It was so it was such a novelty that for some people that was the reason why they went to go see the movie. It was to see this movie with this technology, these bright colors, this story, all this stuff, and it was accessible to a lot of people. I mean, there wasn't anything that was really going to preclude people from going. It's not a romance movie, so it's not something that you see as like, oh, it's a date, or it's not a war movie. It's none of these things that it's like it's going to target a specific audience. This is a universal story. This is something that is going to evoke all kinds of emotions from you, hopefully. And if you don't get that, you at least get to go, ooh, the colors.
You know what I find crazy about that? It's 2023. Everything I watch is in color. I have high def television, whatever else. And this still works for me. It still looks beautiful. It still gives me that, ooh, there's Oz feeling. And that's fucking crazy to me. Like 85 years later almost, this is still working. That's nuts. Maybe it's just me, but
No.
No. It's not just you.
Yeah. I mean, I hadn't seen it, and this is a movie that I have watched pretty much every single year. I have all the songs memorized. I have almost the entire movie memorized, and I didn't watch it for a few years. And then I rewatched it a couple months ago, and I started crying at the color scene where she opens the door and we see the color. And it's just like the nostalgia and all those feelings I had as a kid just kind of like flowed back and hit me. So yeah,
and it's like that promise of getting out of where you are as well. Like no matter what that means to you personally, just like that is such an excellent representation of that feeling when you feel like you can get away from whatever you're trying to get away from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
God, now I'm gonna have to look at it with that lens of like trying to get away.
So then she comes outside and she's in this wonderful new land. And and then John's favorite character, the most evil witch of all, shows up.
She's the most evil.
So okay, well, there's that old meme that I adore that talks about how she, uses Dorothy and could have sent her home at any time and doesn't. And
that's
that whole thing.
That's where I was going to go, because that's a great. I think it's Mad TV does a sketch on it too.
Nice. But yeah, she's the one that
saying that she's the most. She's the only evil one. She's so evil based. This is the other thing that pissed me off about
You're
this
always
scene.
siding with people who are trying to kill dogs. Have you noticed this?
You know what? Maybe Toto had it coming. Okay.
Oh my.
So anyway,
I'm out of here.
Look, he's dead now, so it's okay.
Please use that the next time that we do the bold horror statements panel. As you say, Toto had it coming. I want to see this entire room turn on you. Oh my God!
Well, it wouldn't be the first time, but the issue with Glinda, right, is she immediately asks, "Are you a good witch or a bad witch?" And then has this back and forth with Dorothy, and Dorothy's like, "Well, witches are old and ugly, and blah 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 blah." And Glinda's response is, "Oh, only bad witches are ugly."
Yes.
I'm like,
yes.
So you just asked her if she was a good witch or a bad witch, but then you say only bad witches are ugly.
It's such a slap in the face.
I'm like, wait a second. Hold on here. Hold on, madam.
Glinda, the winner of the backhanded compliment.
She's poor. I hate Glinda the Good Witch. And I don't even want to get into the video the guy made about like she was a princess, bro. The whole thing of she is the mastermind of all this shit. And it just aggravates me that she's so good at manipulation, right? So you got the Wicked Witch of the East, you got the Witch of the West. So it seems as though there was some sense of balance.
Did you just drop Wicked off of the Witch of the West?
Yeah, I did. So anyway, when it comes to like the social commentary, the political issues, the symbolism that's going on here, it's been theorized that the Witch of the East, and I'm going to call them all witches instead of wicked or good, but the Witch of the East, it's been theorized, is banking and government, right? Coming from the East. The West is seen as the railroads, possibly, expansion, things like that within the nation. North would be industry, and then South, you could argue, as agriculture. As far as like these two economic systems that have boosted America itself, industry, agriculture. The things that have gotten in the way are the bankers, and then those who would take advantage as far as like trying to expand into as much territory, take over as much territory as possible, which is what Elmira Gulch is accused of. She's just taking up more land. She's just taking more. And so the railroads, when they were starting off in the 1860s and 1870s to have the Transcontinental Railroad and to actually have contracts with the government to expand out in the West, the railroad companies would specifically try to go through certain areas to take people's land, but then also beyond that, they would have the rail lines designed in a certain way to where they could take up as much land as possible, but then also use eminent domain as part of the Constitution to get the government to give them the land because it was for improvement. All they had to do was pay the appropriate price. But like railroad history in this country is wild as far as the way that railroad companies really screwed over farmers, ranchers, your average everyday citizen who's living out there and just trying to live their life. So you got that parallel of the bankers are the reason why the economic situation is the way it is in the 1930s, as far as, not just bankers, but investors, things like that. They're the reason why things are the way they are for Dorothy's family in Kansas. The other reason why her family is struggling is because of people like Elmira Gulch. So if you kill off the banks, the only person you have to worry about are the folks that are trying to take your land to suit their own interests. But they're not wicked. It's just the way things work out. I hate that they keep talking about my girl.
So it's one of those classic things where your friend really likes this girl, but she's an evil witch.
Wow. Wow.
No, what I was really going to say, and this is just a quick comment, I always wondered if like the only reason that there was a good witch of the North and nothing said about the South was, a Civil War type of thing going on here where the North is good. And we just never fucking mention the South again.
No. I mean,
no.
in the book, I'm pretty sure Glinda was actually the witch of the South. I'm trying to remember.
That explains her dress.
I'm not
I
going
can
there.
resist. I'm sorry.
I'm not going there. I'm not going there.
My daughter said that she was a Princess Peach wannabe.
Nice.
Wow. She has a crown. She has a crown. She came down and up.
Hilarious.
Which this is something a lot of people don't know about. It goes unnoticed, and you got to dive deep for this one. So Dorothy gets the shoes, and because she gets the shoe, Glinda puts the shoes on her feet. It's this great moment of, I guess, switcheroo or whatever you would call it, diversion, where I was about to call her Elmira, Elphaba, because her real name is Elphaba is talking about, oh, you killed my sister. Oh, I need to get her shoes. And as she goes to get the shoes, they disappear, feet curl up, disappear. And Glinda then lets her know, like, oh, they're right here on Dorothy's feet. Yay, yep. Great. Yep. It comes back at the end of the movie where Elphaba was going to take the shoes from Dorothy, and she gets shocked by the shoes and then realizes, like, oh my gosh, I'm such a fool. Of course, there's a spell on you. And that spell can only be broken when you die, but I have to be very careful about it, because if I do the wrong thing, it's going to affect the spell. And then basically she's not going to be able to get the shoes. The background, or at least the detail that they I guess they didn't really discuss that much in the movie, or at least it ended up on the cutting room floor, was that I almost said Elphaba. Glinda, when she is, bidding Dorothy adieu, she gives her a kiss on the forehead. Mm-hmm. And apparently the kiss is a protective spell on Dorothy. Yep. That then prevents Elphaba from getting the shoes later on. And it's just remarkable that, that she's going to these lengths to ensure that Dorothy continues on with this cause. So I feel as though Glinda just showed up and took over the Munchkin village, and because you never go back to the Munchkin village.
Yeah, no, that was That was her whole plot the entire time, was to
She's evil.
become president of the Munchkin Village.
What a strange thing to aspire to.
Well, I mean, she's probably bored.
Oh my
Yeah, they're
God,
all-
another rich bored one. It all makes so much sense now.
All right, so she goes off onto the yellow brick road because the idea is you need to go speak to the Wizard of Oz. You need to go to M City. He'll fix all this. So upon that trip, she meets those three figures. One being the Scarecrow, one being the Tin Man, and I'm trying not to laugh at my notes because some of the stuff I can make out, some of the other stuff I'm like, what the hell? And then the Cowardly Lion. So all three of these are representing some things that, you know, Dorothy is going to need to not necessarily take advantage of, but be mindful of. So you got farmers being represented, or farm workers being represented by the Scarecrow, because they're perceived as dumb. They're not intellectual. Their purpose for their existence is something that can result in them being taken advantage of. Right? You're working with the land. You want to be able to expand on what you have, provide a better life. But what you see with these farming communities is they never grow, they never move, they stay the way they are, and nothing changes. And then you have the scarecrows. You have those crows that come in and steal what they can and then run off because they're not concerned with these poor, dumb farmers. Then, of course, you got the Tin Man representing industry, and of course, factory workers. The Cowardly Lion, as Frank L. Baum wrote it, it was representing William Jennings Bryan and any cowardly politicians. So populists that talked a big game, but when they were confronted, backed down, like it was like that was what they were born to do. What were your initial thoughts with any of these characters? Because we already talked about who is whose favorite, but what were your initial thoughts about these characters? What role they really play in the grand scheme of things as far as beyond this movie?
Well, I'm going to admit that I do not think I did nearly enough homework on this. Just
There's no homework. This is why we have Dawn.
I'm learning so much from you, Dawn. But I think when it comes to the characters, the symbolism of mind, heart, and bravery are definitely some that have stretched beyond the scope of this movie. And the idea that Dorothy has to think on her feet, but also be kind and thoughtful and brave, which I think she does all three, or learns to do all three pretty much through the film.
She's not the dumb child at the beginning, like, not to be overly condescending.
Oh God, no.
But like she has a major change here.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm going to just admit that I am not really sure how to answer your question, other than the fact that I loved how this movie dealt with creating such wonderful, everlasting characters. And I'm sorry, I don't have anything.
No. I think you're hitting exactly what he asked, and basically what I want to say as well. I think what's interesting about these characters to me now, I don't know, initially, I was like 6 the first time I saw this, so I probably just thought, wow, that Scarecrow's funny. But no, like looking at it now, rewatching it in 2023, what I see are three characters who think they're missing something, but constantly show that they have it. The Scarecrow's always the one with the plan. The Scarecrow's always the one who's thinking things out or grabbing the axe to bring down the chandelier. He's always the one like leading the way, right? And so he clearly does not lack the ability to think. And then you have Tin Man, who never once appears to not have a heart. He may not physically have a heart, but he is very compassionate. He's very worried about everyone else. There's never a time that I question at all that the Tin Man doesn't have that kind of heart. And then you have the Lion, who he's a little cowardly here and there. He tries to get people to talk him out of things, or he tries to take the easy way out. But the very first thing he does, if he was cowardly, the very first thing he does is jump out and initiate contact. That's crazy. So I go to what Kat just said, that Dorothy's the one who also probably isn't missing these pieces, but doesn't know she has them. And throughout, she shows compassion by building this team and caring about them. But her whole thing was trying to get the hell out of where she was and get away from these people in a way. She was running away from home just to save Toto, which is also having heart. But she was willing to sacrifice everybody else. So that part has changed. She is uneducated in the fact that she's 16 and hasn't seen much of the world and doesn't know anything outside of her little area. Okay. So that doesn't mean she doesn't have brains, though. It means she doesn't have experience. And then courage, she's had no reason to have to show courage. Standing up to your girlfriend is extreme courage. So Dorothy has it already. But I don't think that Dorothy would see herself as being courageous. She's kind of jumpy and all over the place and terrified and doesn't know what to do. So she wants to run away, But that's kind of courage. You're giving up everything to save the thing you love the most. So I think that these three, to very slowly answer your question, I think these three always had the pieces that they needed, as we find out. But I think Dorothy did too. And I think all of them just need to find this piece inside of themselves. So I guess that's just a long way to say that they always had the power to do these things. They just wouldn't have believed it at the beginning.
Well, no, you bring up some really good points, because when you're talking about any of these characters, it's the illusion that they don't have those. They don't have those aspects from what both of you were saying. Because when they do go to the wizard, when they go to confront the actual man, and he starts handing them things and saying, "Oh, bravery. You don't have a way to measure bravery because blah blah blah." And we didn't have medals, because he pulls out the medal and gives them the triple cross and says, you acts of bravery. That's how you show that you're brave is with these medals, right? And it made me immediately think about how within the military you have what's known as your rack, and it's whatever your ribbon rack. So whatever ribbons, whatever awards you have are supposed to be arranged a certain way. And there's like this gauge of, oh, well, I have an ARCOM, you don't have one, or I have an Army Achievement Medal, you don't have. So it becomes those things of this and the challenge coins, when you get down to it, are just trinkets. And one of the best examples of a, I guess, what should have been a good reaction from the Cowardly Lion, or just the Lion, is what Dwight Schrute did in season 8 of The Office. I'm sorry, James. I'm sorry. I apologize. Where they have roughly the same scene, where Robert California, he shows up for a job interview, and Robert California's like, "Oh, this job isn't right. I've got this for you, though. My father or my grandfather won this for, meritorious service during World War II. And I'm going to give it to you to demonstrate, the type of person you are." And he immediately takes it. He says, "No, I don't want this. This is not what I came here for." So the Lion, in my estimation, But again, it's a 1939 movie. It's supposed to be for families, but I'm sure in the darker version, or if a darker version can be made, it's, we take the metal out and, stick it right in the wizard's face. But what he should have done is, if you're telling me that let me go back. I wish the lion and everybody else had more agency, where they all just looked at each other and like, oh my God, that was so brave that you just did this. Great thinking, Scarecrow. That was a great idea. I wish it had come from them within that group, where they're recognizing that they already have those skills, as opposed to the con man having to validate what they needed.
Yeah.
So it would have been, Dorothy, you did such a great job with this. Who would I leave out? I left out the Tin Man. Oh, the Tin Man, you cared so much for Dorothy. You got us here. You couldn't care that much if you didn't have heart. But I mean, the wizard does have some good points in saying, heart is measured by how well you're loved by others, not how you love other people. And it's a great lesson. It's a great thing to let people know. But I think, handing them those trinkets undercut it. For me, it undercut it. But again, I'm looking at this as a 45-year-old man who's seen this movie. I would probably estimate over 100 times that I've seen this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, well, you got to remember, James, I had this as part of my classes. So I would see it, I would say about 3 to 4 times a day. No, I'm sorry, 5 times a day when I was teaching high school, like each semester. And then when it was college, it was 2 to 3 times each semester. And then of course I'm going to watch it myself. Oh, it's on television. And then of course I'm the one of those weirdos who looks at the articles to to see what they got right or wrong. Like, nope. That's not what happened. There is no dead munchkin in the movie. It was a bird.
No.
Oh man, I actually wanted to talk about that. That's in my notes. Just the craziness of the pre-internet and how these rumors would spread, and now we can just pop on and go, no, you idiot, this is what happened, but like,
no, James, I
remember so many people telling me that story, and it was just crazy.
Well, I would say even with that, you still have problems with people on the internet, because you still can't convince people that Sinbad did not make a genie movie.
Oh my God.
It's on the internet. No, it's not. It was never made. It was a joke. It was a joke that he made for Funny or Die. Or
we have X now to make sure that we get the most accurate information.
Oh my God. From what, Stormfront?
I couldn't resist.
I'm sorry, I think Kat was...
Oh, Kat, go ahead. You have
we passed something that I had wanted to bring up in Munchkin Land. So I'm sorry, we're going to head back a little bit, but the existence of a coroner and of an already existing coroner in Munchkin Land, which just totally gets rode over, and just like, okay, death is a normal occurrence here in Oz.
Well, he already had the form filled out.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to know about his ranking system of merely dead and, really most sincerely dead.
Yes.
Like, I'd like to know more about the metrics he's using to make these decisions.
Yeah,
maybe he was in the poppy fields at some point.
With all the asbestos.
He's got, yes. Oh my God. Yeah. You think he's seen enough death at this point that he's got it categorized into 2 major sections. So it's, yeah, it just, it's one of those things that like they wrote it in, they had him sing a little thing, and then we're left here to wonder what dark things happen in Munchkin Land.
Right.
Well, I just thought it was also like, there's something fascinating to me about how his song has like the same level of meaning to these munchkins as the Lollipop Guild and the what were the girls? The Lullaby Guild? And
the Lullaby League.
Lullaby League. Oh, I'm sorry. And but like it's like that same level like death or lollipops and lullabies, like it's all the same, really. But I find that fascinating that they just make fun songs about everything.
It's almost like Willy Wonka.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my.
No, that was all I'd wanted to talk about, honestly, to go back. But no, we can, do we want to do the apple orchard next?
Oh, well, before we get there, let me just throw out my favorite line in the entire movie. That some people without brains do an awful lot of talking.
Yes.
I was like, if nothing else held up, most of it does, but if nothing else had, that line is so beautiful today, so beautiful every age. Like you could just walk around with a shirt like that, and even people who are young and have never seen The Wizard of Oz would be like, "That's right."
I was going to say that's probably one of the most quoted lines from this movie. Is, and sometimes misquoted. I mean, there are a lot of lines that are misquoted in this movie, like, "Fly my pretties" is never in the movie. And then there was, "I don't think we're in Kansas anymore." It was the other one, because the line is, "I don't believe we're in Kansas anymore." But yeah, it's still relevant. I mean, look at the, well, anyway. I was gonna say, look at the new Speaker of the House.
Oh,
not
man.
That one. Well, I don't know, but when does this episode come out, James? We might be gone.
November 13th. So there could be 3 new speakers by then.
All right, I'll leave out some lettuce to see if it.
Jesus. The other line I quote all the time, if my wife and I are driving somewhere and we don't know like really where we're at, but we're not really using GPS either, like we're just, bumming around, right? If we come to a dead end, every fucking time I'll be like, "Some people go that way." She's like, "Stop it."
But a lot of people go both ways.
Go that way. All right, we'll jump ahead to the trees.
Wait, before that, do you realize how no, we're gonna come. Do you realize how difficult it was to present this movie to high school students when that line hits? Because they're not sitting there laughing around stuff, and they, you got the juvenile humor, and as soon as that hits, they're like, or even some of the other things as far as other sounds, noises, and quotes from the movie, where you sit there and like, "You're ruining this movie for me, guys. Like, this is innocent and pure, and you've turned it into something else. I don't like you anymore."
Legit question about your high school students. How do they handle the lion's effeminate ways, shall we say?
They really didn't. I mean, there was nothing negative. If that's what you're asking.
I really wasn't sure.
Or at least there was no one who, because my students at that time, they knew me. Well, Kat, to give you an idea, when Key & Peele had that sketch of the substitute, my students thought it was based off of me.
So did I.
Oh.
Because I had a very straightforward, no tolerance policy of treating people a certain way based off their background, their identity, anything like that. Like, they knew I wasn't going to send them to the office. I was going to talk to them. So they may have, at least the kids who probably would have said something inappropriate, were like, "I don't want to hear from Mr. G. I don't want to hear anything. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut."
Gotcha.
Because I've seen some of them since on social media. I'm like, "Oh my God, no, you're a horrible person now." What is going on here? But Kat, please.
No, I so apple trees, I don't know what I wanted to talk about with the apple trees. I just figured that was a great next segue into another potentially scary scene with anthropomorphic objects, and that trees can be scary, and that's
the trees.
Well, I mean, you look at nature.
Encounter much.
You look at nature. Oh yeah. And you're right, because you think about nature as being the safe thing, right? And here you are, Dorothy is coming from the real world. She's in this fantasy land. She's over the rainbow. And why in the hell should a tree talk? Why? I mean, the scarecrow doesn't seem to really disturb her that much by comparison, right? But those trees, it's very clear they really tapped into our fear of like the forest and the darkness, because you go from this part where the scarecrow is in, where it's very light out. I mean, it's very bright. I'm sorry, not light out. It's very bright. But when they move over and go into the forest, it's darker. Like the tone switches. So yeah, you're right. I mean, that's a really great way to demonstrate the way in which the tone of the story changes. But to piggyback on your point, or at least to double up that point that you made, James, this is also a showcase of when the scarecrow demonstrates that he's not dumb. Because these trees are complaining like, oh, you're ripping these apples off of me. But then they get mad and they start taking the apples off of themselves and throwing them at Dorothy and the scarecrow. So which is it, guys?
Well, they're allowed to do it. It's their body, Don. Gosh.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, you have a point.
No, I actually am really fascinated by like just from a writing point of view. I don't know that this was intentional at all, but the way that they make us think that the trees are bad when they're just reacting, right? Like
right.
And there's so much there. Like let's say that your girlfriend wasn't trying to kill dogs and set people on fire. Let's say she was nice and just green. Then we're supposed to dislike her based on her skin being a different color, and that's not cool. But these trees do the same thing. Like your argument is that she's just reacting to her sister being killed, and these family heirloom shoes full of power that she wants were taken away. You know, I think there could be, in the right circumstances, there could be a very direct correlation in how the trees just react to being attacked from their point of view. So yeah, I do think that she's evil, and I think that the people that work for her are very happy when she's dead, and that doesn't say good things about her. We'll see it at Twitter one day too.
Again, I never said she was a good person. I'm just saying she's not.
I just like arguing.
She's not the villain. Arguing. I know you do. Oh, my little notepad went to sleep. So,
oh man.
I mean, you've got that moment where they meet the Tin Man, and it's obvious like he's been neglected. Doesn't even know how long he's been there by himself, but he just says, I just remember I was out here chopping wood, and then it rained, and I've been out here ever since. I don't know how long it is. And that's a great way to talk about, I mean, one, to read into it, but then also to read way into it. The way in which labor, or at least the needs of labor, were neglected by those in charge. I mean, as far as the average worker in industry and things like that. And in fact, we don't get an industrial boom because, again, 1939, we don't get the next industrial boom until World War II production. And that puts everybody back to work. Those individuals that were, working for the WPA or the AAA or any of the different alphabet programs under the New Deal, now they can go back into the factories and work. And when the U.S. male population, predominantly male population, gets called off to war because there were women that were women that were participating in the war, you've got people that would not have been allowed to work in the factories prior to that period that are now working. So everybody is there. Industry is not seen as something the government is going to pay attention to. Now, government is going to ensure that workers are protected to an extent, because there's still going to be a good bit of exploitation. The bosses of these factories, because of the way the War Powers Act work, they can't dictate what's going to be produced in some cases. They can't dictate the hours. They can't cut wages. They have to produce for the war effort. And there are several cases of managers and business owners like being taken out of the factory because you're getting in the way of war production. You're stopping us from what we need to be doing to ensure that, you know, our guys don't die over there and that Hitler doesn't win. But they go from that. They have this great interaction and demonstrating, you know, getting this guy back up on his feet. I mean, he was already on his feet, but getting him back up on his feet before they go off to this next point. And Kat and James, that same tone hits as they go through the darker part of the forest where the lion is. And the way the trees were, it already sets you off to where this next person, they must be bad as well, because he immediately jumps out at them. And as you pointed out, James, it's demonstrated that he's initiating. He's the one trying to show his bravery, his courage by scaring them away from the forest. But what did the two of you think about, I guess, the development or the expansion of this group?
Well, one of the things that struck me was how they tried to play the Scarecrow and the Tin Man kind of against each other at first, and then when the lion jumps in, of course he's being represented as an antagonist, but they all kind of have this very like gruff opinion of each other to start. And that kind of goes through the rest of the movie. Like they're begrudgingly kind of together, even though they're like, you know, holding arms and dancing down the road together. They all kind of maintain this, I don't know, like jokey, sarcastic, but like not buddy,
okay,
friendship, I guess, with each other. And it's something I didn't really notice, of course, when I was a kid watching the movie, but it definitely struck me the last time I watched it.
I'm gonna have to go back because I didn't think about that aspect. I was looking at other stuff. James, oh, he's gone. Please go ahead.
No. But the other thing that I do, this movie where the Tin Man joins is when we kind of start to get the threat upping a bit, because that's when the Wicked Witch shows up again. That's when we start heading into the dark woods. And this is a part in the original story where we get an antagonist that we did not get in the movie. And it kills me that they did not put it into the movie, because I thought that it was one of the best parts of the book. And that is the Kalida, which is the scary monster thing that lives in the woods that chases after them. And someday I would really like an adaptation of Oz that portrays this thing rightfully. But there's a lot of violence in this section of the book that's not portrayed on the screen, that they obviously chose to not show because it's a family film.
Right.
that I wish I could see, I guess, in a new adaptation. But I think that they did a good job of showing the threat through mood, through music, through scenery, and getting the point across anyway.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think they would lose. Well, I don't feel that they lost anything by having it here, but I do feel as though, to agree with you, it would have definitely enhanced it a little bit more. But with it being 39, with with movies themselves being ridiculously tame by today's standards, I could see how people would even argue that there are some parts of this movie that are pushing the limits. of what would be acceptable on film, or at least would be acceptable for public consumption for a family film. But now I'm like, damn it, I want that.
It's just so odd how like things were obviously in the script and then were cut out. Like the witch still mentions the insect that she sent on a head, but then we don't actually get the insect. You know, I look at it now, and now if a movie did that today, we would just eat it alive. We would be like, oh, they fucked this up over here, and oh, this movie's terrible. They didn't even care about continuity, you know, and this has been around for so long and people don't even notice it. My wife noticed it for the first time ever while watching it this time. And so I was kind of telling her a bit about it, but I just find that fascinating. Also, earlier when you thought I was gone, I didn't realize I was on mute. So I was just here talking away. And all I said was that when I was a kid, I assumed the three would be best friends. And watching it this time, I was like, you know, they might like know each other, but I don't think they're hanging out anymore. And that's it.
No, it's your work friend.
I thought you guys would enjoy that I was sitting here rattling on to myself while no one could hear me.
Oh, James, you'll be okay. It's all right. But no, I mean, you're both right with that aspect of it's seeing it from a child's viewpoint and then seeing it as an adult going through those life experiences. Well, not these life experiences, but life experiences to where you can recognize or at least get a sense of when people are just stuck together. And again, initially, I never saw it that way. I didn't see it that way for a while, but you do pick up on the snarkiness and kind of the passive aggressiveness in a couple of cases, couple of editions, where they're not necessarily messing with each other, but it's kind of like, if it weren't for Dorothy, we would never interact with each other.
Yeah,
it's like that one friend that holds the friend group together.
Yeah,
you are welcome.
I know, James.
Like there's when they're like skipping down the road singing "We're off to see the wizard," like they repeatedly show the Scarecrow and he keeps like sort of falling towards the ground as he's dancing along, and then I think that it's Dorothy who keeps yanking him back up. And so, you know, it's just like there is kind of this like, yeah, this is my new friend, but God, get yourself together. Like,
I'm going to eat that comment. Anyway, I have a friend in California who's like, fuck you, James. Anyway,
I was thinking, looks like, damn it, James, are you going to tell me something about myself that I don't know?
No.
But then you said California. I'm like, it's not me.
So, like, we all know the story. We know that they get there and they soak the witch with water, and you know, Dorothy's not even trying to kill her; it's just trying to save the Scarecrow. They get the broom, they go back to the wizard, and we do the whole trinket thing we talked about earlier. But my fascination watching it this time was once again how the Scarecrow leads the way. The Scarecrow's trying to get them out of there, you know, and I really paid attention to him so much more this time, and I was fascinated by how involved like that is. Like every step of the writing process had to be the Scarecrow has to make these choices, right? And I love that so much. But I look at like the Tin Man, and it's so much harder to show heart, and the Lion. Everything you have to do at this point is bravery, so you can't even make him stand out. And I thought that was really interesting, that it just kind of like, as a writer, it's just like painting yourself into this corner, like, well, fuck, now I can't do the thing I was trying to do with these two. I can basically only show the Scarecrow's part and Dorothy's, you know.
Well, I mean,
but yeah,
but the thing is, the Lion has a whole song also.
Yes.
In the castle, dedicated to being king of the forest and being in charge and showing courage that way. So they tried to work it in. I feel like the Tin Man is really the one that got like left behind a bit. Because his like showing his heart is basically him crying and rusting all over the place. Which is a little sad that they couldn't have been a little more diverse there.
Right? Yeah. You know, even in the opening scenes when we're on the farm, his scene got cut. The other two, you know, Hunk says, "Yeah, you got to use your brains. You got to, you know, that kind of thing." And the other farmhand, whose name I don't know, you know, mentions courage. Thank you. And but Hickory's part was cut. He was supposed to have this machine that he was working on, and he says something about, "Oh, there's a machine with heart." And so it feels weird watching it now when I know these lines are coming, and I'm like, he doesn't get one. And I feel like that just kept happening to him the whole movie. Like, it just constantly gets left out.
James, you can look at it
that's all they knew what to do.
He's industry. He's the industrial worker who gets left behind. He gets forgotten about. I mean, you could look at it that way. That you just have to. You just. I mean, you said something that was so funny, and I'm like, don't laugh at it, please don't laugh. He probably didn't intend it, but you said Hickory got cut, and I'm just like,
he does have an.
That's what the guy's job was. That's what the guy's job was. His name is Hickory. He becomes a tin man who cuts down trees.
That dude's backstory is fucked up. Somebody needs to make a movie just of that. But
isn't there a horror movie called Tin Man?
If there's not, there should.
I know there's a Scarecrow one. I know there's a Scarecrow horror movie, but
there's a sci-fi series called Tin Man, which is actually really
that's
good.
what I'm thinking about then.
And does that do the whole backstory of like him losing his limbs and all that stuff?
No,
it's not like that.
Well,
I mean, that's another point from the books that are. You know, totally got changed for the movie was that, you know, all of his limbs got hacked off and then replaced by tin or metal. So, yeah.
So if you're asking, how is this a horror movie? Well, have we got dismemberment for you? And then we have this asshole wizard. This guy says he's an old Kansas man himself, but has a fucking balloon from Omaha. Now, I don't want to sit here and defend Nebraska, but you know,
I wanted to bring it up. But you know, you already brought up Nebraska, so I can't do it now. Because that was the first thing I thought. I was like, 2 movies with Nebraska references in a row.
Well, it's not in a row for our listeners, James. But yeah, it's we did it on 5 nights and now this. But yeah, I don't know. It's just such a funny thing to me. It's so Hollywood. Like, I don't know, somewhere in the Midwest. Where's Omaha? Like Kansas? You know, I love that. But no, the whole thing with the wizard trying to fly Dorothy home and all that stuff. I love how insane that idea is because he doesn't know how the balloon works. So, like, if this had taken off the way he wanted, this is just a man and a 16-year-old girl stuck in a fucking balloon that they don't know how to operate, and they think they're going home. This is a terrible fucking plan.
See, what a great way to redo the movie. Like, who knows what comes next?
And then they land somewhere and they meet a giant dodo bird. Wait, that was Up. Never mind.
Wow. Okay. Okay, this is one of the questions I wrote down because when the Wizard of Oz is trying to explain, like, or at least when the concept of Wizard of Oz is trying to be explained, and then he kind of explains what he is. Have either of you ever had or listened to an interview where a politician or an investor or a banker or whatever, somebody just tried to explain their job, and it's clear that they don't know what they're doing? Because that was what I got from him. I mean, have you ever run in? I shouldn't even just limit it to those jobs, but have you ever run into people where it's that same thing where they have their job or their position or their title, and they try to explain it, but then they realize, or you realize halfway through the conversation, like this guy says he's a neurosurgeon. How the hell is he allowed to?
I would just like to take a moment and say, if you ever meet me in real life, please don't ask me about my job now. No reason.
Yes, I have definitely.
Oh yeah.
I know what you mean for sure. Yeah, his whole. I mean, first off, just saying I am Oz, the great and powerful. You're like, okay.
What a way to introduce yourself. I feel like it reminds me of that scene in Office Space with the guy who's trying to describe his job and he's like, I'm a goddamn people person, like yeah. Maybe Oz is just a goddamn people person. Anyway.
Who can't say philanthropist?
Love that. Good deed doers. My 8-year-old was like, I don't think that's what they're called. And she was right.
Yeah, I don't know why, but like he when we're first introduced to the wizard in that scene, which is a very intense scene for I did not have any thoughts of deception. It's more just it's a giant floating head and it's terrifying and there's flames and he wants them to prove themselves. And the proving themselves is the kind of the scary thing, because it's like, well, you're a great and powerful wizard and I have just named myself as small and meek and you're asking me to kill somebody. So very what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was going to say it also takes advantage. I mean, when you talk about you don't have this idea that anything other than what is being presented is what's taking place. Like it's this disembodied head that's 100 feet tall and whatever, and has this booming voice, because you've already been exposed to magic in this world. You've seen you've seen the Witch of the West appear out of smoke. You've seen the Witch of the North appear from a bubble. So you have it, and you even landed a house on a witch that her legs curled up and went under the building. So it's very clear this stuff exists. So why, if you've already seen the existence of this, why would you ever doubt it? Yeah. And I think that's one of the cool things, not just with this scene, but with the overall theme of the film, where things aren't what they seem to be.
What I do think is kind of interesting, and this is the choice of whoever adapted the script to film and did this particular part, where they wanted to keep the core characters together, and to encounter a giant head, which in the book, I'm pretty sure they get separated and each of them encounter something different, which
interesting,
it kind of speaks a little bit more to that, like something weird is going on and you have no idea who or what the wizard is, because each of these characters has been presented with something else. And so it's a creative choice to have just gone with like the giant head and having them all stick together, because it shows their bond in front of something that is terrifying. And
I like that.
Yeah, it's interesting anyway.
I like that a lot. That's I haven't read the book since I was probably like 12, somewhere in there. So what is that, 84 years ago when this was made? And yes, I didn't remember that part at all, but that's fascinating. Like, what a cool thing to make each one like see it differently, because if it was meant to be, industry and farmers and whatever else, they would see the capital differently, although similarly, so that's really cool.
Well, you know what? I'm going to bring in another fandom here. So if you look at Star Wars. There's that scene that so many people have used for memes and whatever, where Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi arrive outside of Mos Eisley, and he says, "Oh, never will you find." And I know some Star Wars people will be like, "You misquoted it," where he basically says, "You're never going to find a place that's more wretched and more scum-filled than the people that are here." Right? Just paraphrasing. Luke doesn't see it that way, and I mean, you could. He looks at Mos Eisley as like, "Holy shit! I'm away from the moisture farming place with my uncle and my aunt. This is awesome." He sees it as an adventure, whereas Ben Kenobi's looking at him like, this is like, there's just horrible people here. Like, it sucks. But, and I think by adding that perspective of all four, you get that presentation of what any of them would have been more sensitive to or more aware of, which I think would be, it'd be a great way to reimagine this movie where you do have them separated.
There's a really good adaptation that was done in the 80s, and it's actually an anime cartoon.
Really?
It was one of Miyazaki's studio. I think it was Studio Ghibli who did it. It was one of their first movies. And it's a cartoon Wizard of Oz, and it's very close to the book, without a lot of the violence. And it has the depiction of all the different things that they see in it. And I watched that recently too, just because I was, curious. It is on YouTube. For those who are curious. And I'm pretty sure Dorothy is the one who sees the head. Still, the Scarecrow sees a lady. The
fucking hunk. I knew it.
The lion sees a giant ball of fire, and the Tin Man sees a rhino. It's supposed to be a beast, but in this this version of it, it was a rhino. So to each their own. That's the,
Well, look, until you mentioned this, I completely forgotten about this movie because I saw it as a kid. And for me, I was like, no, I like the other Wizard of Oz. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch them. And I know what it was. I know what it is now. Definitely, it was the Scarecrow's hair that just freaked me out because it just
weird. It's very
it was weird. Yeah, but yeah, it's they're. I know what was it, the Back to Oz or Return to Oz or something with Veruca Balk as a kid. I watched part of that, but I was like, this is kind of freaky and weird.
That was
it's not. Yeah. God, I'm gonna have to go back and watch. I have not seen this movie in probably 30 plus years.
I'm missing out. All I've seen over here is the Muppet version. So,
oh, yeah, the girl who voices Dorothy is actually Annie from the musical film adaptation of Annie.
God, you made me forget. I completely forgot that there was even a Muppet version of this.
You're welcome.
Oh God, I can't.
On that note,
I know why. I know why I didn't watch it. Ashanti was in it. That's why I didn't watch it. I did not like her, so I didn't watch it.
So you have Ashanti and Franco on your list. Who else is on this list?
No. It's just she's never done anything. It was just I'm not a fan of her, so it wasn't like it would be kind of like when I guess they enlisted Beyonce and around the same time, and MTV or someone else, they decided to have a modern adaptation of Carmen. And they cast Beyonce as the lead and was like, well, I like Beyonce, but no, I've seen the movie she's in. Nope, I'm good. So I didn't watch that one either. Now, mind you, anybody who's listening, I don't have anything against Beyonce or Taylor Swift. I want to make that clear.
Yeah, you have to throw that in. The Swifties will get you.
I have to throw it in because I'll be in big trouble. Watch Taylor Swift get cast in the remake of Wizard of Oz.
God.
Yeah.
My
So
gosh, that would be great.
So, do we have anything left we need to cover, or should we move to movie Rex?
I'm good with movie Rex. I mean, there's I could honestly talk about this movie for like 5 hours. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to affect any friendships and budding friendships that are out there.
It's fine. I'll log off. No. What about you, Kat? You got anything else left, or are you ready to move on?
Nope. I am ready. I'm good.
All right, sweet. Well, you're the guest. So, if people love this movie, what else do you suggest that they watch?
Well, the 1988 anime version of The Wizard of Oz should be first on your list.
This comes out of nowhere. I was not expecting this. No.
Talked about it. You also probably should watch Return to Oz, which is the 80s follow-up or attempt to follow-up version with Fairuza Balk, which is amazingly creepy in so many ways. And I think other options on the list, certainly we can do like Alice in Wonderland is a good, similar movie. We talked about Star Wars, so Star Wars A New Hope. You could follow a similar path there. I think, another one that people might be interested in is, I think it was NBC who tried to do an adaptation, a newer adaptation of The Wizard of Oz with Emerald City. They only had one season.
I remember that.
But it was very good, very creepy, very surreal.
Yeah, it was dark.
It was dark. The guy who directed The Cell was in charge of a lot of it.
Really?
And it's really good. It's on Peacock. So if you have Peacock, you can watch the first season, which is the only season of that.
Nice.
And then the sci-fi miniseries Tin Man is another really good one.
Fantastic. All right. I usually do a double feature. I'm going to go with one of my all-time favorite movies, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
There goes one of mine.
Yeah.
These would be so much fun together. So, yeah. All right, Don, what are your 1,286 movies?
All right. I want to apologize to everybody who is listening.
Did you really do 1,200?
No, I didn't. I also forgot to mention the whole issue of the symbolism with the Wizard of Oz, with OZ being ounces and gold and silver. And anyway, so because it's all made up, it's all stuff that we give value to. Doesn't matter. The movies that I'm going to recommend as part of this would be, first off, Grapes of Wrath, Modern Times, Klondike Annie. In fact, if you were to just do like a movie marathon, I think all four of these would fit together so well with the various themes. But Get Out, The Lion King. No, James, that is not a joke. I mean it. The House with the Clock in the Walls, Shrek, Labyrinth, E.T., Mary Poppins, Annie, Charlotte's Web, Night at the Museum, Enchanted, Matilda, and The Witches, either the original or even the remake.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
But are they good witches or bad witches?
Well, in this case, they're all bad witches.
Not true. It still depends on your point of view.
Well, no, they identify themselves as bad witches.
That's their point of view. Anyway, I couldn't resist. All right, Kat, that brings it back to you. Where can people find you online, buy your books, all that good stuff?
So I'm basically everywhere online. I'm omnipresent. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever it's called now, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok. And my website, where you can also purchase books, is at KatherineSilvaAuthor.com.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right, Don. Normally I thank the guest for being here, but I know that you want to get it out of your system one more time. So I'm just going to sit back and let you do it.
Well, stop talking, James, damn it. Kat, I cannot tell you thank you enough with this one. I'm sure James sitting there, thank God I don't have to hear about this anymore. But thank you, because I've been wanting to talk about, because I haven't had the opportunity to talk about this movie with other people actively in a few years, probably since like fall of 2018. And I, again, as opposed to drawing this out, thank you deeply for doing this. Now I'm going to start sending James the other requests that I have, which are on my board right now. I might message you what they are. I might message you what they are as well, so you can come back and talk about those movies.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm glad that you requested this. I'm glad you came on to talk about this movie with us, because James wasn't going to let me do it by myself.
No, I am really glad that you guys were super amped to talk about this movie. I wish that I could have provided a little more.
What are you talking about?
No, I just, you had so many like interesting nuggets, and I was just like, wow. and honestly, I could listen to you teach a class on this in all happiness, because I love the Wizard of Oz and I love learning everything about it. So,
well, I will say this, Kat, we worked together like the Tin Man, Lion, and the Scarecrow did in my imagination as a kid. I'm like, they're all working together. This is great. Then you're like, God damn, you guys are some just backhanded compliments and passive aggressive statements. Jesus. It's like, what happened to you guys since I was a kid?
Reality set in. All right. I suppose that wraps it up for one more week. Kat, thank you for being here. As always, I am James Sabata.
And I'm Don Guillory, reminding you that the best way to dispose of a witch is with water, because apparently there's nothing left over except for their clothing and a broom that some crazy maniac convinced you to go get, which, he just really wanted to send them to their deaths anyway.
Wow. All right. And we'll see you next week here at necronomicon.com. What a world! What a world! What a world!